Alright students, so in this video, we'll be learning on how to find the gradient of a straight line. So same thing, you will be given 2 points and the 2 points will form a straight line and the question will ask you how to find the gradient of that straight line. So what is a gradient? Gradient basically means the steepness of your line, okay? How steep is your line, and that's your gradient. And it's usually denoted as small letter m. Alright, so if let's say you have a horizontal flat line, just like that, your gradient is definitely 0 because your line is not steep at all. On the other hand, if you have a line that is vertically upright, just like that, you can say that your gradient is infinity because it is too steep, okay? Or you can say it's undefined. Your gradient is undefined, okay? And if you have a line that is increasing from left to right, it can be like that, it can be like that, or it can be like that, okay? As long as it's increasing from left to right, it will have a positive gradient. And on the other hand, if you have a line that is decreasing from left to right, it can be like that, or even like that. As long as it's decreasing from left to right, you will definitely have a negative gradient. So what would the value of the negative gradient and positive gradient be? There are actually two formulas for you to find that out. Alright students, so these two are the formulas for you to find your gradient. And if you look at the first formula, you can see that there is a y-intercept and x-intercept. So meaning to say, for the first formula, you can only use it when you have x and y-intercept. Just to recall back, your x-intercept is the point where your line is meeting or touching your x-axis, and for y-intercept, it is the point where your line is touching the y-axis. And for the second formula, you can use it in any kind of situation. So let us try one question. Now looking at the picture, you can see that your straight line is touching your y-axis and x-axis at 5 and 3 respectively. So from here, I can immediately use the first formula because my x-intercept and y-intercept is given. So by using the first formula, all I need to do is just to sub in the values into the formula, and that would give me my answer as negative 5/3, and that is your gradient for that line. And now students, you might have this question in your mind. Sir, can I use the second formula to solve for this question? Because you just told us that the second formula can be used in any kind of situation. My answer to you is yes. And let us do that together. You know that at this point, the coordinate is 0, 5, and the coordinate at this point is 3, 0. And to use the second formula to solve for this question, you first need to assign your coordinates to be x1, y1 and x2, y2. Same like what we did when we're trying to find the distance and also the midpoint. So which coordinates to be assigned as x1, y1? It's up to you, okay? You can either assign it x1, y1 and x2, y2 for the coordinates, or you can assign it as this to be x2, y2 and that to be x1, y1. Trust me, you will still be getting the same answer. So let's just pick the red color assignment. So that would be just to solve it, and that would give you negative 5/3 as the answer. And if you can notice, your answer is same as the answer we found using the first formula. Now let's look at this second example. You are given with 2 points, point P and point Q. Now you have to choose between the first formula or the second formula to use to solve the gradient for this line PQ. So now let us see. Does it have a y and x intercept? Does this line cutting through the y-axis and x-axis? Answer is no. So meaning to say you can't use the first formula. So you have no choice. You have to use the second formula, which is m equals to y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. You first have to assign your coordinates to be x1, y1. So again, it's up to you which coordinate you want to assign as x1, y1. But for me, my preference, I like to follow alphabetical order. So meaning to say my P will be x1, y1. My Q is x2, y2. So after I've assigned the coordinates, I just have to sub in the values. And that will give me the answer of 3/2, and that is my gradient for the line PQ. Now I have some extra notes for you. Alright, the first extra note is when you have a straight line, okay, and let's give it the point of P and Q, and you have another line somewhere here, I call it point R, okay, I can say that the gradient of my line PQ will be equals to the gradient of my line RQ, or it's equals to the gradient of my line PR. Why? Actually, it makes sense because your point R is on the line PQ. That's why all of them will be sharing the same gradient. The steepness is the same. And the second point is, if you have a line, and let's just call this line 1, and you have another shorter line, okay, any length doesn't have to be shorter, but it has to be parallel. Okay, I'm telling you that these two lines are parallel. So if you have this case, you need to know that the gradient for your line 1 will be equals to the gradient of your line 2 also. Why? Because both of them are parallel, so meaning to say they are having the same steepness. So same steepness means same gradient. And the third one is, if you have a line, and I call this line 1 also, and you have another line that is perpendicular to your line 1, I call this line 2. So what is the gradient relationship between these two lines? Very simple. The gradient of your line 1 multiplied the gradient of your line 2 will be equals to -1.